So now you started us off. That's a nice segue into talking about barriers to adoption of emerging technologies. And so we'll jump around a little bit. Stephanie, what barriers did you find when you started Eloquia, and how did you overcome them as a new company?
When we first started looking at this problem of excess inventory, honestly, the infrastructure, the technology where it is today, it just didn't exist. And so we'd go talk to these companies, and a lot of times data is missing. You're talking about data, information isn't there. If you've got information, companies really didn't want to share it. They were a little bit apprehensive of where's this going in the cloud, who has access to what, and maybe I don't want to admit and acknowledge the problems that I have as a business, even when there's opportunities to solve it. And so for us, the big challenge was culturally waste, excess, inefficiency. It was just accepted. Things were moving faster and faster. Supply chains were going. And, as a founder walking into that room, whenever you're building and innovating in a new area, you have to show why there is this pain point, make them feel it, and understand then that there is a solution for them and that it'll be easy for them to adopt. And so as we started growing, the question that kept coming to us was, how do you know what is excess and waste? And so we started doing our diligence, and there was no industry definition, none in the industry and none from the government's perspective. And so we've spent the past few years actually writing a standard and a framework for how you understand when something is excess, unused, and what you can do with it. And so that framework has now been adopted by some very large companies. As the next step, we've put it out for public comment, and then it will go to government bodies for feedback. We work with the White House, we work with the EU, we work with New York City government. And so I think that experience, taking a barrier and a lack of a definition, we were able to come together as an industry and actually create one. So trying to find opportunities and create new asset classes for everyone to benefit.
That's great. That's great. AJ, cost is usually a barrier for nonprofit organizations. And so I think you've mentioned publicly that your use of emerging technology is helping to lower some of those costs. What would be the barriers for nonprofits trying to adopt new technologies?
Icon. So I think there are two big ways that we see technology as a benefit to lowering costs. The first is in service delivery, which I already talked about a little bit, right? There are certain tasks for financial coaches, but really any direct service practitioner that you can lower the cost of delivering those services. And inevitably in the nonprofit world, there aren't enough of the humans to go around for all of the need that needs to be met. And so lowering the cost of the human service delivery is critical, and I'm really excited about the possibilities there. The second one that's talked about a little bit less in our little neck of the woods is lowering the cost of building products, which is really important because, we are raising money in relatively small amounts. And so if we can get our products to market faster by, doing rapid prototyping with AI or having our engineers use Claude code to write code more efficiently, that is incredibly important for the health of our business, but also for our ability to try new products and features faster and to get to scale faster. I think the challenge that remains is really around, okay, AI has made it a lot easier to sort of get to the MVP and the prototype, but if you're going to put technology in front of real human beings, especially perhaps a more vulnerable population of human beings, then there needs to be a step up in terms of the infrastructure and the quality of that technology build. And so what I found to be difficult is moving from a promising prototype to a properly funded pilot study so you can actually ensure that this really works with real humans. I haven't quite figured out how to bridge that gap. And I think it's not a problem that's unique to nonprofits or AI. It's just this general challenge of like, how do you get someone to fund something before you've proved it out? And how do you prove it out if you don't have any funding to hire an engineer, right? So yeah, I'm hearing some sympathy from the fellow innovators on the panelists here. So
yes. Certainly true in academia as well, right? So, Jacob, what are the barriers for government officials who might be seeking to make their work more efficient with these new technologies?
Well, I think based on conversations I've had with people, some of it is they don't feel like they have the time to go deep on like each individual little like protocol or technology that someone comes in and talks to them about to see if it might be something they want to work with. But also there's very real like cybersecurity standards and other considerations that governments have to adhere to. I feel like in general, the public sector is more cautious than the private sector when it comes to trying new things. Move fast and break things is not really an option for most governments. And so even if I think there are lots of people who work in government who are very tech forward and want to try new things, I think sometimes they have to try out things on their own time or on their own dime, and maybe try to bring that into a supervisor and try to convince them that this is a worthwhile tool they might want to use in their office, and that all those things kind of add up and create a lot of friction.
When I worked at the California Blockchain Working Group, which is a legislative advisory board for the California legislature, and Ben was a member of it with me, my job was to call around to government agencies and say, how do you think blockchain could improve your agency's work? And one of the persons said, is this a prank call? Like, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, we have a lot to do on this working group. Yeah. So Ben, on that note, can you tell us about the barriers that you have experienced in trying to move local government forward?
Yes, it's Sisyphean, it's a Herculean, it's really difficult. Each one of my major items has taken years to pass in one city, Berkeley. And so what I found is in order to get it through, you have to educate the decision makers and also people who influence those people, and then from there, you take the role. If you have kids here, you know this. You have to give your kids power, right? So you got them a choice. The choice is yours. You have the power to make a decision right now, and you have two paths. And so I always offer two paths. One is stark that we're heading towards, and one is more optimistic that we can get to. So for the blockchain microbonds one, it was very clear. I was like, listen, we can have a future where no one has any assets except a few people. And we can't afford to fund anything because we can't hit the traditional bond markets because we don't have access to this and this tax credit, finance, complicated stuff. But harder for us to do the things we need to build for people and more poor people because no one owns anything. They chose the path for microbonds, which is allow us to own things, right? Now you're seeing this as the RWA revolution, right? And then for the telemedical housing for the homeless, same thing. I said, listen, we can have homes for all over the streets everywhere, and keep making buildings that take 7 years to make, that cost so much money and have no real benefit inside of them, or take new models to build, new development models, new financing models with telemedical integration, and get healthy people housed in 6 months at a fraction of the cost. They chose that. And that one took 7 years. And then the third one, of course, the new AI policy, my new favorite one, I said, listen, we all see where this is going. We're on two paths here. We have Star Wars on one path, desert planets, techno overlords, Darth Vaders, right? Or Star Trek. Abundance. Material abundance, intellectual abundance, diversity, endless exploration, justice. They chose it.
That's great. That's great. That's a good one for folks to bring with them. Actually, I like that line.